Hi everyone, Sanjeev here. Today I have the privilege to interview one of the top real estate agents from Rockingham region, which is in Perth. Our guest person is not only an amazing person, he's very successful in what he does. He's winner of multiple awards and very well known face in his region. In fact, he's known as the king of Secret Harbour, a suburb which he work mainly in that in suburb. So he's also number one in Western Australia for November 2022 as one of the top selling agent. So if you're a owner occupier, investor, developer, or a buyer agent, it's very important that you have a strong relationship with the local real estate agents to be able to buy a great property. In this episode, we're also going to discuss about how to build a stronger relationship with the real estate agents. So let's get into this episode. So welcome, Jack. How are you?
Chief, I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Nah, thank you. Thank you for joining me today. So, how things are in Perth, Jack?
Yeah, very good. Very, very busy, which is good. We're still seeing great results and lots of inquiries and properties not lasting long on the market. So, touch wood, after a long few years of a pretty terrible market, we're having a bit of a good run, and hopefully it continues for a while.
Yeah, no, definitely one of the strongest market in the country right now, I would say. So, um, I think so, Jack. The plan of this interview is to really get into your personal journey because I know you have an amazing journey. You're doing really well. Because I know being a real estate agent is one thing, but thriving and being number one like yourself is the next level of game, which requires strong mindset, a lot of work ethics, skill set. So I think, I think if you want, like we can start with your background, who you are actually, where do you come from, and now where how did you get into the real estate industry?
Basically, I moved here with my family from the UK when I was 11. We relocated to Secret Harbour. So my grandparents and my auntie and uncle, and we were sort of all lucky enough to come together. My When I went to high school, actually, my mum ended up getting into real estate. She'd come from a background of car sales, pretty much, and a few other things. And the local owner of the real estate agent said, "You'd be really good at real estate. Will you come and do it?" And she said to me at the time, "Oh, what do you think I should do?" And I, even from a young age, had always just been fascinated by real estate, houses, agents. I just always thought it looked like such a fun, sort of fast paced job. So when she said, "Oh, what do you think?" I was like, "You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to do it." I was just like, "This is the best thing ever." So with the obviously convincing of my dad and my sister and all that, we were like, "Yep, go for it." And she got into it and did very well very quickly. Especially, I think Secret Harbour being such a high British migrant sort of area. We have loads here. She sort of had a good connection with that sort of people moving over and could share the journey of relocating and not knowing how the system worked here. So she really tapped into that, as well as school mums, and her network grew really quickly, and she did really well. And after moving to sort of a franchised agency, she ended up going out on her own, and then we had a family business. So when I left school, at the age of 17, all I wanted to do was real estate straight away. I was like, "Yeah, real estate's for me." But my parents were very conservative, and they said, "No, no, you need to go to uni. You need to get some qualification, because if real estate doesn't work out, then you've got nothing to fall back on, and you're very young, and people don't really trust young agents, and that sort of mentality." So I was like, "Okay." So I went and decided to do HR, and 18 months into it, it just got to the stage where I love people and working with people, and I thought, this just isn't me. I could HR, I thought, would be very, you know, um, I guess, intuitive and using common sense and personality, but it was very much like a lot of graphs and data and that sort of thing, and that just again wasn't me. So I ended up saying to my mum and dad, "No, I hate it. I can't do it. I really want to do real estate. And I think they just needed me to really, really want it. So my mum said, okay, you can come and do it, but you have no favors. The area is taken up by reps. We've allocated it. So you'll have to start in a new area. I can't just hand you everything because that's not fair on our other reps as well. So I went, yeah, no worries. So I started in a new area and just went for it, hammer and tong, calling off market listings, calling listings that expired, just jumping on every inquiry, listing anywhere that would lead to it, just to build it up. And in my first year, I was in the $10 to $15 million club for sales. And then basically that was 10 years ago now. And every single year I've just increased the sales from there.
Oh my God. I think so. Literally, I think in spite of, parents not supporting and saying, go to uni, get into the education, and that's the natural progression, right?
Yeah,
But it's still I think to you, I think looks like the real estate just came through naturally. And
yeah,
then instinct was like, hey, this is for me, right?
yeah, absolutely. And so much passive learning. I definitely also made a commitment that I wouldn't just go into real estate and just sell. I also wanted to build other things. So I was heavily involved in our property management and the growth of that, and the systems and the procedures and all that type of stuff. So I got to know that. And when I went to do my license, the company at the time said, "Look, we take into effect a lot of recognition of prior learning." And just sitting there talking to them and then running through questions, I couldn't believe. I think I managed to do it in just a few months because I got that much recognition of prior learning. And it was all through just being sat at home, growing up and hearing stories of my mum saying, oh, this has happened. And then her going on the phone and listening to how she dealt with it. So I did have a massive advantage in that respect that, I had years of just sort of passive learning before I started. Um,
But was it like all positive learning at home? Because I think, at the same time, parents were like saying, no, don't get into the real estate. So was it like a bit of a conflicting thing or?
Not really. Like I think certainly my dad and my sister hate real estate, so we had to try and curb the real estate talk when we were at home. They're definitely not that way inclined, but I just loved it, and I think my mom was always happy to share the knowledge and always helpful and that. So it wasn't. She was definitely there to help as much as she could, but without handing it me sort of on a plate because I guess she just didn't want me to fail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely. And so did you mention like around 10 years ago, you guys were doing like 10 mil or something?
Yeah, so in my first year, I did 10 million and just over 10, I think 11 million in sales. Yeah.
That's like a massive number. I mean, and this was in Secret Harbor, Perth, right?
Yes, yep. So along the sort of coastal suburbs here. Yeah.
And what sort of price point these properties were?
Oh, they were around back then, probably back to where it is now. So probably around the 500 mark. Yeah. So I was, and back then it was, I was doing a lot of out of areas where I guess our core market wasn't. A lot of land where I was calling people with like trying to sell the land and no use in saying, oh, look, if I sell it and, would you be happy to, have an agreement and that sort of thing. So just really, really chasing it to build it up. And, I was lucky that I had a good friendship group and a lot of sort of their parents and stuff would give me listings and always to work off the back of that. But yeah, that the first couple of years was extremely hard in terms of just putting all that work. But that was the best time to establish because you knew and you've got that energy and that eagerness and you are willing to sort of do anything for it. So yeah, it worked. It worked really well. And then since then, your network just builds and builds and builds, and we've managed to continue to scale. And I would say back then there was probably in our suburb 9 or 10 key agents. So it was very hard winning business. Whereas as the market took a turn and got harder, a lot of them left and got out of the industry and did other things. So we were sort of left with maybe 2 or 3 core agents. And I found that the best time, the Perth market was so hard, and I found that the best time to build upon and probably grow because it's when honesty really comes forward and working hard and going the extra mile. And I think yeah, it's in those markets that probably the good agents survive. Yeah.
No, definitely. So, what were the key things you will say, Jack? Like, being like 10 years when I go back. I mean, of course, right now you're doing much better things, and way. But like in your first year, like doing a lot of deals, and also, what are the key things? Because when people start, they struggle. Was like what was going in your mind, and
I think the two basics are that you probably naturally have to have it is one is work ethic. I think if you haven't got that work ethic, then it's going to be a very hard industry to succeed in. And secondly, being accessible. A lot of people come to me and they go, I really like real estate, and I sort of will chat with them, and they might have young children or, um, you know, heavy sport commitments or whatever it may be, and I will always have an honest conversation with them and say, is real estate really for you? Because when you sign up for the job, you really have to sign up to be available 24/7. People in this day and time, if they call you, they expect to call back within a couple of hours. It sort of used to be the same business day, whereas now I find people want even a quicker response. So it has to be nonstop. You have just drop everything, and really be accessible. And then if you're the type of person that really values your weekends and that separation, I real estate, if you do it, strongly, is very, very difficult for that. So I would say they're probably the main basis of it. And I guess probably the third recipe for success is probably a network. Again, a lot of agents get in, but if you don't, like I see a lot of mums who, kids are older, they do extremely well because of the network through school mums, or whether it's sporting clubs, or, a lot of agents that build to success quite quickly probably had a strong network behind it. And I was lucky in the respect that, we've been here a long while, and my parents know a lot of people in the area and going to school and in the area and all those sorts of things, that naturally the network's quite big. But I think if you don't have that, you probably would again have to work 10 times harder, because you're sort of trying to appeal to people you actually don't know at all.
build that trust actually. So
Yes, yeah, yeah. So to me, my network's everything, and a lot of people say, oh, you never leave Secret Harbour, you spend all your time in Secret Harbour at the Kyle. And I sort of just laugh to myself, because I think you've really not clicked on the connection there of why I do that. And, because again, it's not just a 9 to 5. You, you're accessible. People need to see you out and about and available to talk anytime and interacting. And to me, that's really been pivotal to my career. Yeah.
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, while I think network is important, but the first thing is your work ethics and being committed to this industry. That when you're signing, you're committed there, right? It's not just like
No.
another job. And I think I agree. I mean, when I talk to a lot of successful people, or I've seen like what they focus on one thing,
Yeah.
and like, and that's what you're saying. Your focus is one area. Secret Harbor, you're everywhere in there, right?
Yeah.
And no wonder you're known as the king of Secret Harbor, right? So, and you're doing it so well, rather than chasing everywhere.
Yeah.
So I
Staying
think
focused. And there was I remember a few years ago, again, when the market was really, really down, there was, a lot of sales speakers and industry people coming forward and were really hammering how, this whole idea of the agent 3.0, and the new agent is here and everywhere. And at the time I was like, that's the way it's got to be. You got to just be all online and be everywhere. And then I sort of looked back at where I'd come to, and how that had worked. And I thought, no, you know what? It's not necessarily always the way to go. You can't beat the fact that when someone drives around the area, they see your signs everywhere. And that's every time I do an appraisal, 80% of the time. And I'll say, why did you call me in? It's always, well, I just see your face everywhere. I just see your signs everywhere. So I really think that's the best, cheapest, easiest form of marketing, is to be known everywhere and in someone's mindset. So even in this day and age, real estate's changed, and you can do lots of different areas and work things more efficiently. You still can't beat being that area expert.
At the same time, I've seen you like you put the effort, like genuinely, helping the vendor and then the buyer and all those things. So I think so. It's one thing is, yeah, you're everywhere in that area, but at the same time, the real work is also happening in parallel.
Yeah, and you have to love it and you have to care. And one thing that I've noticed with a lot of Australia's top agents, when you know people talk to them, or they were really almost obsessed with real estate and obsessed with it as an industry. And I think that's, if I had someone come through that was looking to get into it and I saw that that was everything to them and they were, going to give it everything and they're really obsessed, then that would be a golden ticket. Versus someone, I think if you're here for the money, it's going to be a quick fail.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, and that's like, I think the biggest disaster, because a lot of people think real estate means nice car, nice suit,
Yeah.
and a lot of money. But
But you sacrifice a lot for that, and I think, again, there's no easy way. And a lot of people, I guess, begrudge agents sometimes because they feel like that. But there's a reason why not many people get into it, and there's a reason why people leave it. And I remember when my mum was doing her real course, I think there was 30 people in the room, and the first thing the guy said is, in 5 years' time, there'll only be two of you in real estate. She's like, can you believe that? And it ended up being true. I think she and maybe one others left in it out of their whole training. And that's mainly because people realize how much you have to give and sacrifice, and the ups and the downs of real estate. You can, when you first in real estate, you can go 3-4 months without getting commission, and being paid anything. And some weekends you can work all weekend and have sold nothing from it, and you've given up your weekend and worked for free. So it's a real roller coaster, and I think you have to be very good at riding that and getting used to that. That's for sure.
so, what are the key things? Because that's very important. I mean, Jack, what you're mentioning, right? So, because a lot of people start. So now, I mean, this one, it's getting published in January 2023. I know in November 2022, you were like the number one sales agent of whole Western Australia, right? So, if you have to say, you know, three or four key things when someone is in the real estate agent, either they're starting or in the game, what are the three four things they need to keep in mind, and that could be a checkpoint for them, that are they doing well, or you know
Yes, yeah. So I think keeping in mind that you've got to put the work in, and not expect things immediately. You can't do one letterbox drop and then go, well, I didn't have an appraisal, I've not got a listing from it, so that's not worked, I'll do something else. It's one of those things. It's unfortunately, it's like anything, like learning to ride a bike, or learning to play an instrument. That first bit of is just practice and repetition and failing and learning from that and getting back up and starting again. And that's going to be the journey for whether it's 6 months, 12 months. I mean, some agents that are doing really well now might have spent 2-3 years sort of not doing as well, just because they're putting in that graft. So I think definitely being able to handle that, and being aware that you're in it for the long game, because in the end it does pay off, but you're not going to come straight into it and earn a fortune just by sort of standing in home opens every weekend. It just doesn't work like that. So that's probably definitely the biggest thing I would say, and being used to, I guess, like I say, the failures, and coming back stronger from that and learning from that, rather than trying to reject what happened and contest what happened. Just how can I learn for next time is definitely really important, because I don't think there's probably anybody out there in the industry who's worked incredibly hard and been self-disciplined in real estate and genuinely liked people that hasn't been successful. It's as simple as that. There's many people will ask agents, what's the secret? There is no secret. It's just a case of hard work, dedication, and commitment.
yeah, just get committed to the industry and say, okay, I'm all in, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's it. You have to be all in. Yeah.
yeah, I think similar thing. As a property investor, when I started my, in the industry, like, as an investor, I was like, hey, I don't know anything, but I'm gonna learn. I'm getting committed that I know I need to win in this, right, industry, to able to achieve what I want to do it. And I mean, of course, the outcome was not guaranteed, but
Yes.
put in the hard work, right? And then slowly you see the results. So I think literally that's what I think you're saying for anyone if they go as agent as well.
Yeah.
Put in the hard work, and you will see the results. Don't give up. And yeah,
And whether it's starting in, a great pathway often is fresh out of school to start in reception or assistant property manager. And I would say that probably the best thing you could ever do before launching into an individual rep is be like a buyer's agent or an assistant agent for someone that's good in real estate. Like the value in what you will learn firsthand from sort of shadowing someone that's doing well will absolutely set you up. So I think, again, you're sort of going to drown if you go straight from, yep, I've done my registration, which you can get in 2 weeks, and you really don't learn a lot because it's such a job where it's hands-on. I think rather than trying to run before you can, walk, I think by assisting an agent, whether it be a couple of years and learning things and building your network from them and getting to know people in the area, then stepping out is a great pathway for success as well. So unfortunately, it's not one of those things you can just rush. It's going to be a bit of time, but whether that's a year or 2 years of commitment and just working that journey, after that, you'll start to see results from the work, and it becomes a very good career.
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the smartest way to learn is learn from other successful people, right? And
Yeah.
replicate that. And that way, you just mitigate your risk,
Yes.
reduce that time frame.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because there's so many, especially now. I think I've noticed a big change where, and I don't know whether it's the same in Sydney or Melbourne, but um, things are really changing now. Now, real estate, the fair trade changed things a few years ago where you can't pay commission only now. For the first 2 years, you have to pay a retainer. So it became incredibly hard for company owners to take on new reps because you were essentially paying for people to bring in business that necessarily wasn't there, and you can lose out from. So the new agent rate dropped completely down, and plus, as the market tightened here in Perth, agents left. So suddenly, instead of having all these agents selling, 10, 20, 30 a year, you suddenly got so many prominent agents, hitting over 100 sales a year with sort of the support of buyers agents and assistants, and then these super teams. And I've seen, that's probably been the biggest change. When I first got into real estate, that wasn't really existent. It was a case of there was lots of agents out there, and doing really well was maybe selling 50 a year. Whereas now it's really about these super teams within companies. So to climb into that until you're ready to sort of build your own would be the way to go for sure.
So, what do you mean by super team, Jack? Can you elaborate for
Like
me?
I guess, for example, like you have your main listing agent, and you're either backed by a PA who takes a lot of the admin away, so the agent can sell more, or a buyer's agent as such, not as in working for the buyer, still working for the seller, but managing the buyers, should I say? So again, that the agent can sell more, and then the growth from that is probably having both. So I'm now at the stage where I have full-time assistant who basically does all our operational stuff from start to finish, and really keeps the wheels churning. She's very pivotal to our success. And also recently, in the last few months, we now have a buyer manager as well. So that now enables me to spend 80% of my time bringing in the listings, working with the vendors, committed to them, because the other stuff's being sort of handled, which then means that we can sell a lot more. I couldn't continue to sell, close to 150 properties a year if I did it all myself. I certainly wouldn't be able to offer the service that we offer to continue that, because again, a lot of agents might have a huge year where they sell loads and burn out or can't sustain that service and then the fall. Whereas for me, it's about consistency. Each year I want to sell either a little bit more or maintain that. It's success to me isn't going crazy for 1 year and then dropping out the next year, and because then you're sort of balancing out. So I guess to sustain that, the team's worked really well, and like I say, you're seeing that all over the place. Sydney and Melbourne is full of that, and Perth's really going that way as well. There's lots even in the Rockingham region now where we have that, whereas I guess there's very fewer sort of standalone agents. And sellers as well are really educated on that way. So I find now that sellers, a lot of them go with me because they see the advantage of how accessible we are to buyers and to everyone by being a team of three, and our organization and our processes and all of that. Whereas again, when I first started in real estate, there was a lot of resistance to an agent having a PA. People really thought, oh no, I want an agent to be there 24/7 because they know my property and do all the viewings and do everything themselves. Well, again, times have changed and people have been re-educated that, how much of an advantage is it to have three people that know the property inside out that are available? And it's still hard. Most people, I guess, naturally, with me being on the listings, come to me and there's always a transition there of getting people's trust. But if your staff are really good, people quickly know. Now, most of my sellers, within a couple of weeks being on the market, call Brittany, my PA, or the buyer's agent direct, before me sometimes because I'm out and about, and they get that trust. And I think that there is a huge advantage to a seller to have really three for the price of one.
So tell me, are the sellers comfortable talking to your PA and those things, like when you're not there, or still you try to manage yourself the vendor part?
Yeah, I think it's important to know which parts you can do and which parts you can't. So certainly those the appraisal, those conversations with the seller, negotiating, I sort of, tough situations, even pre-settlement. Naturally, I think we all know which bits is my job to step in and manage. And I certainly wouldn't expect either of the girls to have to do those conversations. That's what I'm here for. And also, I think that I've made that connection with the clients. That's what I'm there for. But, there's so many parts of our job that really aren't effective for the agent to be doing, chasing settlement agents for things, chasing building inspectors, meeting valuers out at properties. That fills our days in the week. And it's really not effective for the seller for me to spend my time doing that instead of on the phone to buyers and sellers. So it's worked so well that, that's sort of Brittany, who works me's job. She takes control of all of that and keeps things running in the office so that while I'm out talking to a sellers, things keep turning. And again, to me, that's a huge advantage. And now, having done all the different roles of real estate, I know that if I was to get out of the industry and go and, need to sell a property, I would now know what to look for because of, to me, the advantage of having these super teams to be all over it.
So true. I think, yeah, I've interacted with Brittany, and she's always on time, on the spot. Like whenever we're looking for something, she will
Yeah.
reply back. Of course, you're busy with a lot of stuff going on. So I
Yeah,
think, yeah,
and the
no, I think
responses
definitely.
are so important to me as well. That's a big thing. I think so many people view real estate agents as, oh, you sign up with them and you can't hear from them. Or I hear it all the time when I go to listings that haven't sold and people are looking to change agent. I say, well, what went wrong? Well, I never heard anything. I never got any feedback, and all of that. Those things to me are so important, and I drill it in day out. Communication is everything. You don't need to sit on the phone for hours and hours to people. I understand we have to get on. But if a seller makes the effort to clean up their property and go to all that and take the dog out and take the kids out and they're sat down at the park and wondering what happened, to me, it's not acceptable for the agent to call the next day with an update, or, it's immediately, even if it's just what, they really liked it, they've got two more to look at, we'll keep you in touch. That communication, I think, is basic of what agents should do. So to be able to do all of that and keep settlement agents up to date and brokers and I couldn't continue that level of communication and service just on my own. So they're extremely valuable, those two roles.
Yeah. What I'm learning is like that customer experience at all the levels, at all the time, is so important, not just when you're signing or at settlement, but the entire, because then I'm sure that bring a lot of referrals and.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, I make it very clear to the clients that I'm still always accessible as well. So if they want to talk to me, they just say, "Oh, can you call me back?" Or So it's about really nurturing that and knowing the right way to go. So we all have to be accessible, and people's strength. Brittany's extremely organised, and on top of things, and Jodie has a so much patience when it comes to people as well, and time to connect with them and make them feel comfortable about the purchase. So we all have our strengths. And I think as a team, being just the three of us, we're small enough still to be able to know the client and go, you know what, this is a great task for you to do with this person. This is your task. This is my task. And being able to mediate that. It'd probably be harder with a huge team. But, I think three of us at the moment, we've just got it at that right point to really perfect things.
And you guys are definitely doing awesome. I think so. Jack, last year, last financial year, roughly how many properties you guys sold?
Yes, so I sold last year, I think it was 137, something like that.
Okay.
136. Yeah.
That's a good, and that's with you and just Brittany
Yes,
as your.
yeah. So that's with the help of Brittany. So
That's quite awesome number, especially you take breaks and do everything effortlessly. It's not like just selling, right?
yes,
So,
yeah.
or work.
A lot of work, but we do a lot. Like, some days, the phone and the emails just blow up, but everything's really controlled. I'm a absolute huge advocate for the importance of systems. Again, it's a common trait in real estate agents is to be quite disorganized. I think a lot of salespeople hate paperwork and all of that. Funny enough, for some reason, I love that. To me, it's the only way to function is through lists and checklists and organization, because I can, look at straight away. I mean, for example, at the moment, we're managing about 33 properties awaiting settlement. There's no way I could remember all those things, and I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I thought we were missing things. So we, use basically online trackers to go in and allocate who's dealing with what and the status at what they're at. That's really, really important when it comes to doing quantity as well. So some things take a bit more extra time because you'd be more thorough, but it works. We wouldn't function without it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and that's where you have all 5-star reviews and everything, and just and yeah, even to the kind of volume we're playing with, it's not. I think you need that system and processes and running it quite efficiently with a very great team. What you have,
Yeah,
so
no, it works. It works really well. Very lucky in that respect. Yeah.
no, it's a lot of nuggets you're sharing, Jack. So thank you. Now, my next is now a lot of property buyer agents have come in the industry, buying properties for their clients. So, how you feel about this buyer agents, and are you liking working with them, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, it took a lot of getting used to for us here in WA because they were non-existent. 18 months, 2 years ago, I don't think I'd maybe done one deal in 10 years with a buyer's agent. They just were not a thing in Perth at all. And then all of a sudden, pretty much COVID times hit. The course was starting, and, mainly based in Sydney and Melbourne. And it shocked me how many buyer's agents were sort of out there. And, it's now I see it as such a good thing, because it is very hard in a transaction you're always working for the seller, and everything that we do, mentality I say is that working for the seller? Is that working for the seller? But that's what our responsibility is, and that's who's paying us. But for your career, and I guess just to, keep business coming in, you have to look after the buyer to a certain degree, because they're a potential future client. So it's just as important for me to get back to a buyer and all of that as it is to a seller. But you're always working for the seller. And when things are going smoothly, it's great. But often when there's certain things in the deal that, discrepancies or where views align, you really become the middleman. Whereas now working with buyers agents on a lot of properties, it works really well that, you know, you guys get the process, we get the process. We know you're working for the buyer, we're working for the seller, and you kind of controlling them while still working for them. Whereas we don't have that as much, that kind of, you're working for the seller, but you need to also try and relay this to the buyer and make them feel like you're not necessarily doing the wrong thing. So in that respect, it's really good. And what I would say is all different buyers agents have such a different style. And, like when it comes to working, like, for example, with you guys, it's always so easy because I guess you're working for the client, but you still know the rules inside out and the contracts and what's fair and to basically get that outcome. Whereas other agents often maybe come in quite gun ho and we want this, 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 and this. And from an agent's perspective, when we've got 3, 4 offers on the table, to me, it's common sense to say to the seller, look, here's one of the offers. It may be the highest or it may be the second highest, but just be aware, it's not a standard contract. They want this condition, this condition, this condition. This one here is possible, gray area and room for potential litigation down the track. Make things quite messy. Whereas this other agent's very straightforward and to the point. So I think a lot of times it's not necessarily working for the buyer because they're going to keep missing out on properties because that's what an agent's job is. So yeah, certainly there's different styles between them, but generally I think it's a really a good thing for buyers to have somebody working for them because sometimes you need to be told like, no, that's fair enough. We can't push that, and other times as from a buyer's point of view, it's so valuable to have someone there leading you on what's a good property and what's not a good property. And yeah, I think it works really, really well.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think so. What I'm hearing is like for even as a sales agent, it's like more of working with the buyer agent is more of a risk mitigation plan because when things goes bad with the offer, then suddenly they're itching with the seller, the vendor, because of course they want you to sell, and then suddenly the contract is falling apart, and then again you have to look for it, and that time because they're relying on you, right? Like, oh, hey, this is a good offer, let's take it. And now if the deal fails over, because and literally if someone is buying by themselves, then you pretty much don't know much compared to what you'll know with the buyer agent if you have a relationship because you already know them.
Totally. And the East, obviously, mainly as the clients the buyers agents working with, you guys were with, are East Coast investors. And I guess they have in that mentality that buyers agents are a thing, so they think to go to buyers agents, whereas mainly we find WA investors don't use buyers agents still. But the best thing for us with that, and probably for them, is that where we generally get the biggest issues is how different the processes are. The way things are done in Queensland, Sydney, and Melbourne with cooling off periods and building inspections and deposits and all those different things is so different to WA, which is frustrating. We're one country. It would be nice if we all had the same method, but we don't. So most of the issues come up there where I guess potentially without the guidance of a buyer's agent, an Eastern state buyer puts an offer forward, signs it, assumes it's the way that it's been done over there, and all of a sudden it's done so differently, and they're going, well, no, because I should be able to do this, and what's the cooling off period, and no, I've bought 5 houses and we've always had that. And you're trying to explain to them, well, this is WA, and well, that's crazy, that's the wrong way, it shouldn't be like that. Whereas again, as your job before that, you can explain to them that it's different, and also explain to them this is normal, the agent's not doing the wrong thing. So without that person with the knowing the knowledge between the different states, explaining to them, it's kind of like a instant, oh, here we go. The building inspections come back and they're in for a shock because it's so different here, what can be done and what can't be done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, especially WA contracts are totally different than compared to the other part of the country. So
Yeah.
did you had any situation, Jack, where the buyer was from other state and they were like, creating problems, or because not knowing the contract, as you said, right? There's no cooling off period, but then people saying, "Hey, I've bought 5 properties, all had cooling off period. Now, why are you saying there is no cooling
No,
off period?"
yeah.
So did you had any scenario where no, you're like, "Oh my God, why did I accepted this offer?"
Loads, to be honest.
Loads.
Yeah, loads. And yeah, I would say on a weekly basis, we have situations where that sort of comes up, and it's difficult because at the end of the day, the contract overrules everything. So the way I always see it, if a buyer and a seller sign a contract, we send it to them by DocuSign. They can take as long as they like to read through it. Coming back and saying, oh, well, I don't agree with the way that that's done, to me is kind of an invalid response, because that's, referred to the contract. And we have that with the sellers. If, gets to settlement and things aren't working, well, I don't want to fix it, it's only that. Well, you've signed a disclosure statement to say everything works. You've then gone on to sign a contract to say everything needs to be working. Whether you think it's small or big, or doesn't need to be done, or you don't want to pay for it to be done, that's the contract. So unfortunately, you need to do that. Same with the buyers. So we very much do refer always back to the contract and quote, so they can see that it's not just us trying to flag things. It's what it is, but also you want to try and maintain that relationship, because once one's not happy, the other one's not happy all the way along through. It's going to be constant. Out of principle, the other one won't give as much as they usually should, and things like that. So that's definitely a job that I step in with and try and always say, look, the seller isn't doing this, and look, the buyer's not being difficult. It's just a lack of understanding. But yeah, situations we've had where building inspections come back, and they will email us and say everything needs to be done on here. Well, in WA, it's only structural defects that need to be done and working order items. So you go back and say, well, no, look, the seller only needs to do A, C, and D. The rest is just for your benefit. No, it needs to all be done. We want to renegotiate. That's just not a thing in Perth. You don't renegotiate. Like, it's agreed up front, the price, or I'll pull out, or I'll get a finance decline. So those situations, I would say nearly weekly. Where we have that. But touch wood, we've managed to navigate every single one to the right outcome and move forward with the settlement.
Because that can be like, consuming a lot of the energy unnecessarily, right? Because not like someone is doing wrong or anything, but it's just like the expectation is wrong. People are not understanding the contract, and
That's
now, and just I think
yeah.
I can
And obviously
understand.
they don't. Most cases, going back to them and saying, no, the seller doesn't need to do this as per the contract. Unfortunately, the buyers knows we're working for the seller, but even though we are just pointing out the obvious in the process, there's probably not a lot of faith in what we're saying, because they, of course the agent's going to say that. So that's why, again, a good settlement agent's really good, especially one, based in WA, again, because they will be able to say straight away who they are working for the buyer. No, look, what the agent said is exactly correct. This needs to be done. This needs to be done. This doesn't need to be done. And then, you move forward. So a good settlement agent is very, very important as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And definitely talk to them beforehand, before even we put the offer, so that the contractual rules and everything,
Yeah.
and the expectation is right. So now, Jack, you get a lot of phone calls all across country. Right now Perth is hot, especially in your market, like Secret Harbor and around the areas. So I'm sure you're getting calls from investors, owner occupiers, buyer agents. So what are some of the things you would highlight, like when people are calling you over the phone, so that you get a good vibe that they're a serious investor or buyer, compared to asking anything, and like, oh, this is like just a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the questions you would highlight, like is considered as a good question versus a bad one?
Yeah, I would say, definitely when it comes to the offer process, keeping the contract clean is probably the best thing you can do. We have many buyers agents, and different buyers will send us a list of things to write in, which is obviously all in the buyer's favour. In a buyer's market where there's not much options, a lot of sellers may be in a position where they have to agree that, but we're not in a market where sellers need to do that. So essentially, a lot of those offers in a seller's mind will just be almost shredded, because they'll look at that and go, whoa, I'm not. I had one buyer last week ask me to reword the whole contract so that every single defect in the building report the seller had to do, on top of a low offer, and all those other things. So I think coming in with a clean offer, being easy to deal with, and a serious offer is important. Again, if a property's on offers over 449 and the agent's saying, we've got 2-3 offers at the moment and all of that, coming in with an offer of 430 is really wasting everyone's time. It's obvious that the price is going to be pushing up there. So I think definitely being fair and reasonable, and being ready to go with finance and all those type of things from an agent's point of view is all that we want. I know that I always get concerns when people come forward and want lots of different things in there. Again, coming and saying, I want to do an offer, but it's subject to an inspection by a property manager. A lot of buyers agents do that. That's basically again, for a seller, there's no reassurance of that. You know what I mean? You get that done before if you want that, and then offer. It doesn't show serious commitment because they can just turn around and say, I want to pull out now. And as an agent, I don't want to take any property off the market in a hot market, especially when it's just gone on the market, for a buyer that could easily just get out. So again, my team know that once we get the offer, we make contact with the broker with the buyer's permission or the bank to get a verbal that the finance looks pretty good, to check how long they've put down is. Again, a lot of buyers put down 7 days, not knowing that the banks are slow and might need 4 or 5 weeks. And that's going to be conflict pretty quick when you're into a contract and you ask the seller for a 4-week extension. So definitely doing your homework in that is really important. So as organised as a buyer can be, is definitely going to have weight when it comes to competing against others. And the amount of conversations I've had with people that have gone, my offer was the highest, why wasn't it accepted? If you've got a buyer a couple of $1,000s less, that's simple, straightforward, ready to go, and is going to make it as stress-free as possible for the seller, most sellers will go with the lower offer and go for the sake of 2,000. It's not worth risking the property is going to fall over. It's not worth having to do all these extra things. So the highest offer does not always win. It's a combination of everything.
And that also shows that you're not understanding what's happening in the market, because that's like a red flag. Like, hey, it's a seller market. You're just another offer. Now you're putting all these conditions. Like, for what reason? So that also shows like, okay, you're not ready. You're not really understanding. So I think, and of course, there's the couple of grand here and there, and a smoother transaction. So that makes sense. Now, Jack, if someone is like, buying an investment property by themselves and looking in the area, so what is the sort of conversation one should do over the phone to build a confidence that, hey, I'm a serious buyer and my finances, because you're continuously on the phone conversation, gauging the buyer that what sort of a stage they are, right? So what are some of the things you would highlight when talking to the real estate agent, to like yourself on the phone, to get the confidence that, hey, someone seriously is looking into the deal?
Yeah, I think being clear on what you're looking for is probably the key. Because we have quite a lot of properties go on the market, sometimes I'll get, inquiry from the same buyer on 8 different properties ranging from 400,000 to 800,000, all not put comments, and straight away you look at that and you go, wow, that doesn't really add up. Whereas, where I have a buyer call or email and say, look, I'm looking in this pocket between this price, this is the block size that I want. I think straight away they're a serious buyer. If I've got a property that fits that mold, the chances are they're going to offer it. Whereas where we get ones that say, I'm looking anywhere from Rockingham to Perth, between this price and this price, I'm not sure quite what I want. It's common sense that the chances are that you give them a property, they've got such a big search bracket and criteria, and they're not sure what they want, that they won't move forward as quickly as they should. And again, it's an agent's job to really be working with serious people and not wasting the seller's time with non-genuine buyers as well. So that's definitely important, I think, to be quite clear on what you're looking for and your budget in the area, and that you will, act quite quickly. Unfortunately, we're in a market where it's hard for buyers to get second viewings because, it goes on the market and you get offers straight away. We can't just sit and potentially lose offers while we're waiting for people to really decide. So you have to move very quick. So I think making the agent aware that, this is what we're looking for. When we find the right one, we'll act quick and we'll come in serious. If I have a property that's, priced really well and we're getting multiple offers, and I get someone that comes in and they're really, really low, and I've had several of them just offer on every property that I've got and always come in super low, then they wouldn't be my choice to go out my way to, tell them about properties coming on the market when they're not there to pay market price, of course,
Yeah, and that will, just suddenly lose the trust of the agent.
Yes.
Otherwise, if they're approaching it well with the right questions and everything, and they know what pocket they're looking, they know the area, then maybe you can say, okay, hey, I've got this listing upcoming. If you want to have a look, I know
Yeah,
you have missed out. Let's work together. I want to help you as well, right?
yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
that's a good one, Jack. So no, thank you. Now, what do you have to say about the Perth market? What you're saying? No, rate of interest is going up. A lot of people thinking price is gonna drop and few things. So, what you're seeing in your market?
Look, there's always going to be mixed opinions. I think, unfortunately, because Perth contributes to such a small percentage of the Australian market, we get lost behind. And a lot of even clients will phone me up and say, oh, you see on the front paper of the Australian, it says that the market's going to drop by 20%, and I have to say, well, that's taking Australia as an average. At the end of the day, as far as I see Perth, we have a lot more positives outweigh their negatives in terms of the market change. The affordability rate in Perth is so low compared to the rest of the country. Our wages are extremely high. Our rental demand is extremely high. So, people trying to get rental properties at the moment is really, really, really hard. So there's a strong encouragement there for investors to keep buying here. The returns are good. So when you look at our mining sector, like I say, the wages, the fact that things are so affordable to the whole country wanting to invest and get those returns, to me, they don't all add up to a big hit to come. Things are tight with stocks. A lot of people aren't selling because they don't know where to buy still. So until that changes and there's lots on the market and the supply outweighs the demand, if there's going to be a change, I think it could go either way. And I think personally it will probably be quite minimal, because there is so much weight here, and our investors are just as strong. Like when I look at our results at the moment, they're just as good as they were back in March. We've been maintaining that all the way through the last 9 months of negativity in the media, and things are tough. I understand Sydney, Melbourne has gone through all of that, but certainly we haven't seen any effect so far here. So what's to say that that should change next year?
No, I think I agree. I mean, we have very actively buying in Perth market, and I feel like 2023 is gonna be another great year for Perth and moving forward. So now, what were some of the tips you have to give for people looking in know in your area, Secret Harbor, either owner occupied or investor, Jack?
Tips, did you say?
Some tips, yeah, to
Yeah,
people looking in your area, like because right now it's hot. I know it's
yeah,
literally
yeah.
so hard to buy. If you don't know the key peoples there, you have build a relationship and few things.
Yeah, yeah, very, very hard. I think there's a lot of frustrated people out there with properties, lack of properties to buy, and lack of properties to rent. Um, Properties are continually coming on the market. Like we're not down at all. We're probably up with our number of listings. It's just they're not hanging around. So people's perception of choice is definitely down. But I think we've had a pretty good year of choice, really, in all brackets of Secret Harbour. Where I would say investors, I know I speak to you guys a lot, certain pockets that I think work really well for investors. There's a section of Secret Harbour, which is the Comet Bay area. Fantastic area for families. There's parks absolutely everywhere. It's flooded with parks. There's two schools are both in that pocket, both great schools, Comet Bay Primary and Comet Bay College, consistently ranked amongst Perth's best public schools. So for me, the lot sizes in that area generally are around, say, 5 to 550 square meters. So decent sizes, you get decent size 4x2s. They're all pretty well built of that area as well. So I think that's an exceptional area to invest in, because I think the demand for the schooling there will always push really hard. Um, Same applies to Secret Harbour in terms of getting closer to the beach. There's a lot of older properties, and I know some investors think, well, the depreciation's not there, etc. But for, I think, long-term capital growth, it's amazing to me that you can get a property for 5 to 550 and literally be 150 meters from the beach or 200 meters. Long term, that is should not be the case. In years to come, when all this land is gone, that should perform pretty well. But there really isn't a bad area of Secret Harbour. I think when people come to me knowing the area so well, and first of all, I say, well, what's your budget and what you're looking for? Depending on those two things, I could pretty much point someone in the right direction. It's just a case of whether, if you're closer to the ocean and bigger blocks, the properties are going to be 30 years old. If you want maybe slightly smaller, a bit more modern, that's where that sort of Comet Bay area, a little bit back, but the properties are probably only 15, 10 years old. So it's kind of really what you're after. But the best thing about Secret Harbour is there really isn't a bad area, and any pocket is going to rent well and particularly sell well.
Awesome. No, thank you so much, Jack. I think I'm sure this episode is gonna help a lot of owner-occupied investors, anyone, even the real estate agents listening to this episode. So thank you so much. And one last thing, what is the best way if someone has to reach out to you, Jack?
Yeah, definitely. You can always give me a call and or visit our website, jwresidential.com.au, because we're always happy to help.
Awesome. No, thank you so much. I think we'll put you all the details, somewhere in the link. So yeah, definitely. Otherwise, thank you so much again, Jack, and have an awesome day. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed and learned something new from this episode. Please don't forget to review our podcast and tune in every Tuesday 8 a.m. Sydney time to listen to all our inspirational guests and learn from their property journey. In case you're looking for help with your property investment journey or building a property portfolio, please visit our website www.investorsdream.com.au to learn more about us and our services. And feel free to book a call from our website for a friendly chat. Have an awesome life and happy property investing.